Hello, everyone. Welcome back to our qualitative mini workshop. My name is Pei-Jung. I'm currently a doctoral candidate in methodology program in Indiana University, Bloomington. So today we're going to talk a little bit about observations and field notes. And in these very quick workshop, I will go through some of the brief general skills and tips for you to conduct an observation and introduce the layout of the basic version of the field notes. So let's get started. So my next one, observation. Currently, there are a lot of scholars or researchers. They are also adopting video recording and also audio recording into their field experience. However, observation and the notes would definitely provide you with very different experience that would triggers or connects to your emotions and reflections, other than just watching the videos, recording afterward. So still very important in qualitative research, and I would encourage you to conduct at least one of the observation if you are doing these kind of a qualitative study. So before you start, here are some very quick tips. Make sure you arrive early. These will definitely save you or give you some of the time to explore around the field, the site you want to study. And also you will be able to greet people, and then you will kind of starting to capture the things right before everything starting to happen, which would be a lot of things happening during your observation time. So you want to make sure you arrive there as early as possible and to, get yourself familiarized with the field. And then at the beginning of your field notes, you could start to draw the layout of the environment, which I will show you an example in the next slide. So that is later on you could draw the pound on these drawing of the layout to sort kind of to connect to your observation and later analysis. And so, and then you want to find a place where you can capture the best without, interrupting or disrupting others or the critical events from these in this space. So for example, if you are in a classroom, you definitely don't want to stand in front of or even beside the teachers where everybody could kind of see you, or you may probably just block the whiteboard or the blackboard. So you want to kind of find a space that you could almost see everyone, or at least the person you want to observe, but at the same time, you are not really influencing others a lot. The last, these actually not only works for observation, but also any kind of research activity that will involve equipment, such as cameras or audio recorder, that you always want to make sure we have multiple devices. So for example, I will usually have an audio recorder. At the same time, I also have my cell phone to record. In this case, that if your audio recorder happens to run out, still you have a backup. And you also want to check the batteries and memory cards. So that is why also arriving early will be important, because you have the time to set up all your equipment, and also you want to check things and making sure they are working perfectly. Okay, so during your observation, this is an example of a field note. As you can see, we had the time and date and the place at the top of these field notes. And as I mentioned earlier, after you arrive and greet people and, you know, set up almost everything, you could start to draw the layout of the environment that as detailed as possible. You can also kind of take some of the notes, the description of these locations, the weather, the outside, the color, how you feel about these, not well feeling about these environment probably would not be the best way to use that. Later, I will introduce why. But you try to just provide some of the low inference description toward everything you kind of see. And then later on, you will see there is time and notes and a column called OC, which is observer comments here. So what are these? Time depends on, you don't necessarily have to capture minutes by minutes because that is definitely not people in these site experience time, but you definitely want to capture some of the critical moments when you notice very important things happening. Then you probably want to quickly jot down the time. And these would also help you later on. If you go back to your recording, you will be able to align the times with the recorders. And then notes, here you may notice I try to, for example, use again, like I said, the low inference phrases. Sorry, the low inferences term to jot down my notes as much as possible and as detailed as possible. And it is likely you will not be able to focus on what people say. If this is your first time and you just try to, you know, familiarize yourself in the environment instead of focusing on a specific person or a specific group of person. But of course, later on, when you get used to these settings and you're starting to visit the site for multiple times, then you could start to bring in your research question and then, you know, kind of see how you wanna, you know how details you wanna capture a specific group of people or certain people, and then you may be able to capture some of their saying and, you know, movement even without looking at a recording. However, if this is your first time or the first few time of observation, our suggestion is to always start to, you know, capture almost everything from a broader sense in general to get used to the routine of these environments. And OC is something that while you are taking down some of the notes, you're starting to almost have some of the reflection or interpretation of something. So for example, here, Mr. Av is kind of starting to smile, raise his tones, put hands on the table, you know, as if you are starting to do some kind of, you know, inference here, interpretation here, like as if he's ready to listen. This is not something you would directly see. However, this is something that is, you know, kind of coming out of your interpretation. So instead of taking this as a note, you want to put it as a observer comment to say, okay, this is the researcher's interpretation, not what is really happening there. So while taking these notes, you may notice we try to use just descriptions, kind of words, just capture what we see, basically. So again, during observation, one of the tips I keep mentioning is you want to use low inverse language or description. So here, instead of saying Mr. F feels satisfied, we want to say Mr. F smiled to the kids and nods, which are the things you will see with his body leaning back and then his speaking tones raises. So OC, again, as if he's satisfied with what the kids just say. So this is my interpretation of these body language. Maybe he is kind of satisfied. This is not directly what I observed. Again, just researchers' thoughts on what I've seen. The second one is be precise with the description. So for example, instead of saying most of the people in the room wears jacket, if possible, you try to be precise. So say 15 out of 30, 23 of the people in the room wear jackets. So, most, we don't know how much. However, when you say 15 out of 23, people when looking at your records will know, okay, that's more than about half of the people in the room wears jacket, and that may say something. Okay. And then during the observation, observe as an insider. So although many of the literature that may suggest that outsider perspective, which some people would say a neutral, not engaged perspective, may help you to notice more. However, we always want to emphasize that as an insider, actually you may also notice a lot of things in a very meaningful way. So as an insider, put yourself an insider perspective, you are paying attention to the things that the members in the room will notice, not you as a researcher would notice. And so as I say earlier, as a researcher, you may probably want to jot down like every minute. However, as a member in this group, this is not how they are experiencing the time flows. So they may only sense of time when in a specific moment or things happen. And then use the language that the members will probably use to take your notes. These will help you or help a researcher to see what the community members are seeing and experiencing. And our first job as an observer is to notice what other people on the site are noticing, not we as a researcher notice. So we want to enter the site as a learner and experience the site as the same as other participants. And if this is the first few times in the field, we try to familiarize again ourselves, and let's just temporarily put our research question aside and just try to experience the environment without any pre-assumptions it bring into these observation. And then observation by notes taking and versus taking photos. Again, as I mentioned at the beginning, some people now realize a lot on cameras or video recording. However, notes taking would definitely create meaning and incorporate our experience. As I say, you may starting to feel things while you are sitting in the classroom and you're trying to observe, and something will occurs to you, like you're starting to feel the emotional and the dynamic and the flow in the field, and that definitely say something to your or can help with your further analysis or recalling of the experience. But of course, we're not saying that taking photos or video recording is not important. Everything's together. The photos and the notes, together, they could be really powerful. And last but not least, so what are you going to do after observation? Or as a qualitative researcher, we usually do a reflective journal, which is also called a research journal. This journal is different from the field notes. Like I mentioned earlier, that field notes only, in the field note, you only write down everything that occurs in the field. And the OC is your inner thoughts, but still in the field. However, this reflective journal is something that you could write down your reflection, feelings, whichever that relates to your research or the study before or after your observation or your research activity. So these two are different. And there's no specific way to take the, to drop down your reflective journal, but a rule of thumb is to keep the, at least you want to keep the date of when you jot down the notes very clear. So for example, November 21st, 2021, would be, this is my second day or the next day after my observation, and I feel blah and blah and blah. So later on, maybe a few months later, you return back to your research journal, you know when these things occurred, and as time passes, you might probably have more reflections or thoughts to what happened. So keeping the date of when you jot down these notes will be really helpful. So we also have some suggested resources if you want to start your observation and taking field notes. I would suggest Dr. Carl's I believe this is probably his third chapter, or the fourth chapter, couldn't clearly remember, but in his book. And then there's also another book specifically about writing ethnographic field notes. Now, if you're interested in it, feel free to take a look and study them. So I hope today's tiny workshop is helpful for you. If you have any question in the future, or if you are a student in Indiana University, a graduate student, and if you are interested in our service, please feel free to send us a note or visit our website. We have a qualitative and quantitative methodology support available. So anyway, I will probably see you in the next mini workshop. Have a good day.